Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. To say I'm a bit apprehensive about this one might be an understatement. Swans and we haven't always seen eye to eye, and a 32-minute track from them with about 10 lines of lyrics. Yeah, like I said, little apprehensive, but as always, I'm going in with an open mind. We'll see what I can glean from this. We're going to check out the song The Seer, a massive song at 32 and a quarter minutes. Let's dive in and see what Swans is bringing to the table today. Kick off the whole song with a wall of sounds. Interesting timbre over here on the left. It kind of reminds me of a shamisen. But it's not. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's starting to sound more percussive now. Really interesting transition to this slightly groovier bit, removing the noise but keeping that one instrument to connect the two ideas together. Really interesting, because the guitar emphasizes 4, our bass emphasizes 1, and yeah, the drums they're kind of doing their own thing over there. But before we had the bass come in, we were just emphasizing 1 and 4 and then nothing in our second bar. And see, our opening was very overwhelming with that wall of sounds, with the bagpipes and all. And this is moving in a direction of a lot as well. And I wonder if we're going to be pushing towards another feeling of overwhelmingness. Just going to build up into it rather than start there like we did at the beginning of the track. I mean, the one thing I can say about Swans is they are not one for me to ever say that they don't take their time. This song, it just made me aware of my breathing, and I don't like it, and I don't know why it did that. I don't know how it did that. Now you all are probably aware of your breathing. It's just as uncomfortable. Sorry about that. I like how I'm pretty sure you're saying I see it all, as a seer would, their ability to perceive the future. But through the repetition, it almost sounds like he's just saying the seer, with a little bit of an odd pronunciation of seer, kind of pushing it into 2 syllables. It's only 2 syllables, seer. I guess really emphasizing the 2 syllables. New drum pattern. Would we still consider this the same section as we were in? If so, we were about the 10-minute mark of being in here. That's a little faster, isn't it? Look at the volume over there. It's flat. Very little movement. Like, I'm trying to engage with this emotionally too, trying to figure out what any of this is really supposed to mean, because it's all texture. They're aiming for specific emotional storytelling, but I'm not getting it. I think what really fascinates me is the sheer excessiveness. I don't know that I'll ever enjoy swans, but they certainly intrigue me. I find it really difficult to believe we're still doing this idea. Because it wasn't really interesting to start with. And it was excessive after the 10th time. And what are we on, 100 now? Is that a power tool? Or, oh, you know, it sounds like an RC car. Yeah, did they just use an RC car for this? We're quickly approaching 10 minutes of this now. fortunate were they to cross paths with each other to create this band? I mean, nowadays, this is something that you would do as a solo project. But I don't know when this came out. But I know SWANS is an older band, and they would have to find people who wanted to play this every night. You'd have to really enjoy the monotony. We've sort of moved on past that heavily emphasized beat 1, but yet it still exists in the backgrounds. You know, I genuinely thought we were gonna have the last 4 minutes or so just be that single tone. Was not expecting a new section. So the left guitar doesn't come in all the time. I'm gonna lose it if this just ends abruptly. Okay. Not the greatest transition to a fading out sound, but that was a lot better than I honestly thought they were just gonna dum ba dum ba da ba bum, and then just like stop, or even worse, stop it in the middle of the phrase somewhere. Um, so this was a much better ending than I anticipated. Oh man, who's still with me? Who watched the whole thing? Who listened to the whole thing? Also, if you skipped here to listen to the analysis, I have no judgment. I throw no shade. I understand. Especially if you've heard this before. I'm at a point when we get to stuff like this that is very challenging to me. Whether it's because it's long or it's abrasive or it's avant-garde or free jazz, a bunch of stuff that just it never works for me. It's always a challenge to engage with. I don't think I've listened to a single one of these where I came away wishing I hadn't. I'm always glad that I've heard it once. Some of the best works of art that I've been able to watch or listen to or view or feel, even in some cases, art is vast. It's stuff that I've engaged with once and was like, that was an experience, never gonna do it again. And even with my album of the year list, I have a category for art like this now because I think it's important. It's not always the stuff that sticks with us that we listen to over and over and over again that is great. Sometimes it's the stuff that we don't ever want to engage with again. And a lot of this avant-garde, long, drony, abrasive stuff, I tend to put in that category. I'm glad I've listened to it once. Never want to do it again. And if that's where you're at, you've listened to it once on your own, you just want to see my reaction. I mean, my analysis of it. Like I said, no judgment, no shade if you've skipped here. Um, so here's the thing. This song is 32 minutes, and I could find 5 clean parts to it. I could probably make an argument that there are only 4 parts to it, but I'm not 100%. I don't want to 100% back that. I think it's a lot easier to break this up into 5 sections. What that means, though, is that each of these sections is just excessive. All right, 3-minute songs often have 5 parts to them. And so we're left with an intro that is just noise. We find our way to a B section that brings it down a little bit, and we end up building this section up over 10 minutes time, and it smoothly transitions into our C section. Actually, our A to B also had a smooth transition where we kept that one tone that was present and reduced the sound to just that, and then built up a new idea around it. C, we brought in the clanging on the beat 1 of every bar. Burn! What a section that was. And then we reduced this down to just a handful of sounds, static, drone. That's really about it. This would be our D section, and it's what I thought we were going to end the track with, and then we got our groovy bit there as our E section that gave way to our outro. And honestly, that might be the most analysis I have regarding the track is what it did. You know, one thing that I envy about groups like Swans, and maybe even just Swans, because there really aren't too many groups like them, is their patience. In their shoes, none of these sections would have lasted more than a minute or two. which is probably why, well, I wasn't born at the time, but if somehow I had ended up in this group when they were making almost any of these really long songs, I would not have lasted long. There would have been workplace disputes that led to my leaving of the group because my first criticism is, hey, we've done this for a while, and as a composer, I'm done working on it. Let's move on to something else. It's not even from a listener's perspective, which, as a listener, I was done with a lot of this. But I have just a really tough time sticking with a sound for an elongated amount of time in my own writing. And so I like I said, I kind of envy their patience. As a listener, I'm not sure I would want to engage with my works if I had the patience to make them like this, but it would at least be a tool that I could utilize. And right now I can't. It just doesn't click with my writing style at all. And I do want to point that out. This isn't just an exercise in excessiveness. This isn't just an exercise in drawing things out or hyper layering things or hyper unlayering things when we get to just like a drone sound at some points. It's the patience to say, I'm not done exploring this, even though we've been here for 10 minutes. And having more to say, I suppose. It's a really weird statement for me to make because I believe we stay in these sections for as long as we do because the composers, whether that's Michael Gira, is that right? I mean, I gotta look up the date on this anyways. Um, but I sincerely think the composer still has more to say, which is why we stick to these sections so long. But I am missing it. So this was 2012. Who's our person? Oh, it is Michael Gira. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. There's a mandolin on this album too. I had mentioned the shamisen earlier. Could it have been a mandolin? I mean, different culture. Maybe? There's a lot of instruments on here though. Hammered dulcimer. Was that it? See, the thing is too is that they modulate a lot of stuff. There's a lot of production going on. Even with that RC car there in the middle, it was heavily compressed and distorted. It still had a bit of its original timbre, but it was warped as well. And the same thing could be happening with any of these. Yeah, there's a lot of instruments on this album. But yeah, here's what I was saying though is it's not just the composition side, which I have to believe if Michael is the composer, which I think he is. I think that's what y'all have told me before. Is that it's not just that he has something more to say, and I'm not clicking with it, but it's also that he finds people to play it, and I think that's the crazier part. Yep, Michael Gira wrote this track. So he writes this, and he says, this section, we're going to explore it for 10 minutes. We're not going to change much at all. For 10 minutes of your life in the middle of a show, you're just going to be hitting this chord on one for 10 minutes. And his guitarist is like, dude, that's awesome. I'm so glad you wrote that part. Like, that's the only thing I could think of. It's just awesome that these people have found each other. Like I mentioned during the reaction, this to me at least feels like music that if Swans weren't an older band and they were brand new, this would be a single dude in a bedroom. because it just makes more sense from a modern angle to do that. There's so many instruments and they're played for so abnormally long periods of time. Well, I guess it's not abnormally long for the instrument. It's abnormally long in that the fact that we stay with specific riffs or motifs for so long that it begins to take on a non-human form, at least to me. It feels very digital because I find it difficult to imagine 10 people all sitting around to play this. And I know that's my imagination. That's the problem with my own imagination there. But I just don't see an experiment like this, a project like this coming about the same exact way today in 2023. I see this being a solo project type of deal. The logistics of it are just so much easier. Although with the advent of the internet, see, that's the other thing too. With the internet, you could find people. Maybe your first album's a solo project, but then you find people who really love it, and you form an online band separated by distance physically, but not distance digitally. And we've actually listened to a few interesting online bands. I think Dear Mother is online where they're separated. I know Chaos over Cosmos. Cosmos over Chaos? No, I think it's Chaos over Cosmos. Is a two-person project, and they've never met in real life. I'm pretty sure that's accurate too. And I think that that's what this would probably be if it was made today. And so, once again, it's just I find it exceptionally fascinating that these people all found each other without the internet and all wanted to make music like this that is so far outside the realm of normal, palatable, mainstream. Onto the topic of the music. I liked the idea of the opening sections being overwhelming. We had one repeated line. I'm pretty sure it said, I can see everything, or I can see it all, or something along those lines. And I began to think about the concept of a seer, one who could view things outside of the norm. They could possibly view other timelines. They could view the future. They can see anywhere in the world in the present. Like there's a couple of different pathways and ways to write a seer, depending on what kind of mythology you have around the concept. But the idea is that they can see more than other people, and I would wager that if you couldn't turn that off, it would be overwhelming. You would see so many ideas overlapping each other that you would see it all. And the vocals there almost come into they're repeated over and over and over and over, and it shifts into what felt like a mantra for a little bit and then shifted into what felt like a nightmare, where it wasn't really a power to see everything but a curse. You lose sense of time, of scale, of purpose, depending on, what the steer can see. But if they can see everything happening at once, time means nothing anymore. If they can see everything about the largest events, the smallest squabble means nothing. If they can see far into the past, far into the future, it completely warps their perception. When they see, people trying their best to do something and their actions being in vain, it makes things lose purpose. It is overwhelming. It is a curse. It is a nightmare. And this whole song feels very nightmarish through a lot of it. There's very few situations in here that I think are positive. everything has an edge of tension or chaos, dissonance, cacophony, I think is another good word for this. It's just a lot of a lot, and it doesn't always make sense, but none of it feels good. All of it feels grating. And I imagine that that must be what it feels like to be omniscient. However, we shift gears in the latter third of the track, and we begin bringing things down until, like I had mentioned earlier, we have just a drone and like some static, and there's not much going on. It's almost a silencing, but it's not complete silence. And I don't know how necessarily to take this back to the Seer, especially when we introduce that groovy outro, the last 4 minutes of the track or so. Also, I don't know what our vocalist is even saying there, so I guess I'm gonna have to hit the lyrics for that. That was just nonsense. It was like, here's a sentence over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Well, here's a new sentence over and over and over, and sometimes work the first one into it, and it's just rambling, a lot of it. Which, I mean, is it to say that they've been driven mad by their visions? Was the silencing a process of not necessarily losing their ability to see, but losing their sanity? In which case, the visions meant nothing anymore and were just static noise, like the hum of the static and the drone and the buzzing. So then our outro would be the ramblings of a person who lost their mind to an otherworldly power that they knew not how to control. I don't know. The things with swans is that a lot of the times they paint with a very broad brush. That's not how the phrase goes. You get the idea, though. It's vague. A lot of the stuff they write about is vague. The lyrics are sparse and non-direct. The music is exploratory through texture and emotion and atmosphere, in ways that, again, are not direct, they're vague. And I think what the listener brings to the art is exceptionally important in determining what they're going to take away from it. And that's true for a lot of art, but I feel like Swans in particular, um, it's multiplicatively true. In that if you bring very little to the table, you're going to get very little out of it. Whereas with a lot of other music, even if you don't bring much to the table, you're still going to get a surface read out of it. You're going to get something. But with Swans, it's really dependent on what you're bringing to it. I'm going to hit some lyrics here. I know I haven't really talked too much about the song, but it's one of those things, man. It's long, but it's short all at the same. This honestly could have been like a 7-minute song, but it couldn't have been, right? That makes sense, right? I hope you get it. I'm being vague like swans are. First of all, I just wanted to point out that on Rate Your Music, this is sitting at number 3 for all of 2012 at a 3.96 from 19,000 ratings. It is also sitting at 215th overall. Every album that Rate Your Music has, it is sitting at 215. Now, there is a lot of There's a lot of things that go into those numbers. So I don't take them too much at heart. Rate Your Music, as I've noticed over the year of using them, they have tastes. Um, and there's also the idea that you tend to rate the things you know about, and SWANS. I don't know how popular they are. I mean, this thing only has 19,000 ratings. I bet there's a lot more than 19,000 people on Rate Your Music. So it has a very limited rating collection. But it doesn't take any of that into weighting when putting it into the rating system. So it has an almost 4 out of 5, which is ridiculously high, but that isn't weighted against the low amount of ratings on it compared to larger, more popular albums. So the kind of people who are going to find Swans are probably going to be the people who enjoy Swans, and they're going to rate it highly. At least that is my take on it. I wonder what beat it out. What else was good in 2012? Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City took number 1. Death Grips, The Money Store took number 2. Fiona Apple, a really long title, took number 7. Deftones' Koi no Yokan took 8. Tame Impala took 11. Godspeed You took 15. See, Rate Your Music has a taste. Neo Obliviscaris' Portal of Ice sitting at 16. So, still a lot of variety in the top 20, though. Anyways, back on topic with Swan's lyrics. There's only 5 more lines left towards the end of the song. I love you too much. The common mind. The coal in my mouth. The coal in my mind. Those are just cycled and repeated and flipped and contorted and whatever. I have no idea what any of that means. It sounds rambly to me, just as rambly as it did in the song. It doesn't change my interpretation of the track at all, and I still think I stand behind the idea of the overbearing weight of seeing everything and its impact on a fragile mortal mind. That's what I get out of it. I don't know. Let's wrap this up. We're almost at an hour. That is my thoughts on Swans, the Seer. What did you think? Let me know down in the comments section. Above the comments, in the description box, you'll find a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. We have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, check you guys tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll continue on with this week's theme of bagpipes. Hey, there were bagpipes in here, weren't there? I completely forgot about that. Once the song started, I just blanked out on the theme because this song just demands its own thing. Anyways, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.